be paid from the lease revenue program.
Mr. Springton.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This is something that we've been working on since May of this previous year. I can go back in history and start talking about the first round of qualified school construction bonds that we did last March. That actually is putting together Breeden Elementary School as we speak. And now we're looking at round two, which was $25.9 million. We came to you back in May, and we started talking about the different projects that we're going to be putting together, that we're looking at, that could assist the district, because we were just in a question mark because we wanted to first make sure that they all qualified for IFA funds, Instructional Facilities Allotment. We would not do anything with these projects unless they did qualify for those funds. And TEA notified us just a matter of weeks ago. I think it was maybe 10 days ago. Am I right, Mr. Fuller? It was a few days ago that they did qualify for the IFA funding, which means that we are now all of these, that we are building schools at about, is it 25% of the cost?
About 27%.
27%. And we seem to see that as a great opportunity for this district, especially when we look at the getting rid of the 40-something portables that we have at the academic center and putting in a school. We're talking about early college, high school, that the college was worked on a negotiated agreement with us that they would provide the land if we would provide the actual facility. So we're looking at those facilities because what we want to do here is kind of like a domino effect, is that when we move the early college, high school out, that gives us an opportunity to clear the other BLA for middle school and actually grow our BLA program that we have now and expand. I think that is important for us when we look at our dropouts in the future, because that is a very, very vital, important program that we have in this district. And we have a waiting list. I do not think we should be having waiting list when we have kids who want to go to school to a certain campus or a certain public, and this will provide us that opportunity to get more kids into school, which will cause our dropout rates to go down. That was the purpose for that. And the other, of course, is the instructional facility that we were looking at Hannah. Long time coming. I can remember we've been talking about this off and on for months. Mr. Springston, please do not forget to find a way or keep looking into this project. I only heard that from you, Dr. Escobedo. I heard it from you, Mr. Cortez. I heard it from several board members that were just coming in to continue to try to find a way to get that done so it does qualify for IFA funding. We did find a way, and we did find some ways that we could get this done that would benefit this district. The other project, of course, was, or the other two projects, was looking at classroom wings at Porter so that we can actually downsize some of the number of portables that we have on that campus. Currently, we're building a science wing lab on that campus. I think there's, how many wings, I mean, how many classrooms are we talking about? 8 that we're building right now, presently. So we have to do some modification and adjustments, and so we were also looking at a classroom wing that we could also build in that area with negotiations with the city because of the size of where we have this location, that we can also downsize and get rid of some more portables there. The one project that we did look at that we were estimating, and I almost say guesstimating as far as figures were concerned, was instructional facilities that we were going to use at Pace that we would not be able to, after looking at some of the pricing and talking about some of the monies that we have, that we would be going over budget with the $25.9 million, almost $26 million. So I know the operations department, Mr. Fuller, we've all sat down and we have looked at this on many occasions, and the reason why we wanted this special called meeting was that we could actually start negotiating some things with architects once this item had gone to the board, got your questions answered, and then we could start negotiating some fees and get those a little bit faster, because this has to be completed by December the 15th. All transactions Just like what we did for Daniel Breeden, has to be completed by December the 15th. And so we're on a fast track here. Any questions?
Yes. Just, do we have any idea, how much, what's the total amount of money?
25.9 million.
Okay, so we're looking at 3 projects, am I correct, sir?
4 projects, ma'am.
4 projects, so this comes out to about 6.5 million, more or less for each. And we got no backup with any of this, so was there any backup? Because when I just got the agenda, I know backup on ranking, rating, how we came to terms that these were the architects. And I'm just curious how, because we got no backup of any sort, so just,
Mr. Fuller?
Thank you, Mr. Springston. There should have been a ranking was submitted.
It was not. We just got it right now.
we got
On this one.
nothing.
But what was sent to our homes in advance, there was nothing attached other than the agenda.
Again, we come
At least
here.
not on mine.
No, I don't think on anybody.
Oh, mine was.
If I, well, but
Mine was
not
ranking
any of ours, because
for
I
us today.
polled all my colleagues. And again, it fell on deaf ears when I asked to please get back up before I get to a meeting, so I can make an educated decision on what I'm talking about. Because we didn't get it till right now, and it's hard to sit here and swallow, because I didn't get it.
On Friday, they were sent out.
I received mine. so-
Friday, ma'am? Yeah?
Yeah, we sent it in
Oh,
Friday.
I didn't get mine. I don't know if maybe it just didn't go in, because I looked.
We received this, excuse me, ma'am, received an email or disc or what?
Friday with your Friday,
Package.
Friday packets.
It wasn't in the packet said board agenda?
Was that board agenda?
Yes, it was in the board agenda package.
I think, for clarification, we received 14 bids or 14 different bids on 14 different architect firms. And the thing is that we never saw anything other than this 2010 QSBC projects ranking. And what we're trying to see is how were they ranked? What was the result of that ranking? And then not just that, but
The
I have a
basis of the
concern.
ranking. The
Yeah,
basis of the
basis
ranking
of the
was not
ranking
put
is
in.
not attached to this.
It's not even here today.
And then another thing is that, and I'm going to go into detail why, because not long ago, there was a bidding process on an architect firm, and which rather bothered me quite a bit, because Ms. Peña was also there with me at that meeting, where this architect was lacking something, and we still gave that architect the contract, which, in my book, when it's written in black and white that we're supposed to follow protocol and procedures, we did not follow those protocol and procedures back then. So that's my concern, that if we're going to approve something, we're going to make sure that we are following all the protocol and procedures, because it was given to us. Am I correct, Ms. Peña? Correct me if I'm wrong. That there was an architect a while back. We gave him a contract, and there was lack
How
of
far back are you
information.
talking about?
When we had the auditors meeting, Mr. Springston, remember in the audit report?
I think it was one of those contracts that was given out in the early, in the $130 million, but you were not our superintendent.
No, that was on the brief.
Regardless, when it was, doesn't make a difference. The concern is legitimate. And so what we asking you, does these architects that you recommended qualify for the criteria that you set up, Mr. Sprinton?
Yes, sir, and they were. Yes, Mr. Fuller, go ahead.
Nothing was brought up to my attention that any architect lacked any type of certification or licensure.
It was in the audit report.
I think it was also, no, I think
it
it
was-
was in the construction companies.
No, it
No?
was the
It's- I
architect.
know there was some concern, I remember that.
It was it was the architect.
I
It
think
was
it
for
was
the
in the
most
meeting.
recent elementary. You assisted that meeting also,
You were at the
Mr.
meeting,
Fuller.
Mr. Fuller.
And so was Ms. Peña. So that's the concern that we have here, because we do not want to continue with those issues. And we need to make sure that it is done properly and that we follow the protocol. Our concern.
Well, I think the
Based
questions have been answered now, that has been answered, unless you have any other specific questions to ask Mrs. Peña and Mrs. Plesas.
No,
I think that the.
yes, and the
legitimate
specific-
the concern is legitimate, all right?
Yes.
I'm not saying that. That's why we're asking the administration that you select this according to criteria set up, and you can vouch that they are legitimate.
Yes, each one was ranked with the same criteria. by a
And-
committee of administration.
And the reason I'm asking for all the requirements to be met, because we recently denied one on one of the bids, because that person did not have some licenses up to date. In a meeting, if you go back and look at them, we denied one because of that. So I wanna be fair across the board, and that's my only concern, that we get looked at, that we do it for this particular gentleman who's an electrician, didn't have his license, but over here the architect was missing some, we let it go. I want us to be even across the board. That's my real concern, because people out there know what's going on, whether we believe that or not.
Mr. Cortez?
Mr. Hernandez, my only question is, I mean, I guess the other question, I guess, if you're saying that you have vetted everybody and everybody's okay, then, you know, I'm good with it. You guys are on record saying that they are. On the projects, do we have an estimated budget? Because that's part of what I would have anticipated in the backup, and that's not here. Do we have an estimated budget? I know it can't be accurate, but
Like Mr. Springston said, we have guesstimates based on some information that we gathered to compile this report here. The architects did give us estimates of plans that they had previously built. One of them was they had to have plans ready to go because of our time constraints. We did not have to have time for them to sit down and design it from scratch. These were, I think they call them plans in the cans kind of strategy we have here. So yes, based on prior buildings they've done, we have a guesstimate of what those costs are.
can you share
Can you
those
pull up?
guesstimates with us?
What are the guesstimates?
Back is approximately 8.5. And these are total costs. Again, they're guesstimates based on history of construction cost, architect fees, and other costs such as your geotechnicals and material testing and so forth.
That's all in.
Utilities, HVAC, everything.
Brownsville Alerted College High School, approximately 6.2. Hannah High School Instructional Facility, 7.5. And the Porter Wing at approximately 3.8.
What about the PACE?
3.8?
Oh, it's all together, PACE and Porter?
No, pace is
No,
off.
those are the only
Pace-
projects that we're recommending
What was
at
the
this
last
point.
number? I didn't get it.
3.8.
So PACE is gonna be on hold then?
We do not have funding for that at this current time.
Now, I know that when we first started, you kind of didn't have a lot of time on your hands to get everything done, so we can get the application in on time, otherwise we wouldn't have qualified for the IFA funding, but the numbers that you had shared with us before were significantly lower for some of these projects. I think at that time you guys had back somewhere in the $5 or $6 million range as an estimate that you guys. So now the architectural firm is saying that this is in the area of 8.5. And likewise with the early college high school and the Hannah project, you guys had come back with a lot smaller numbers. I think the only one that seems to be in line with what y'all had shared in the past was the Porter facility. It was like in the $3 million range. Even that seems a little higher than I think what y'all shared with us at one point. But how sure are we at these new numbers versus what you all shared? And is there a possibility that we'll have enough for that PACE project that's being left off the table?
That possibility always exists, but what I'm looking at here is that we are looking at actual architect designs that have been built and have been used. And this is what those designs cost at that point in time when they built those facilities. And since we're getting the plans, you know, how they say it, in the can type of designs, they have used those plans before. So therefore, whether they built it a year ago, 2 years ago, we know that those costs are also going to go up and down. We also know that we will be able to adjust some of those plans according to meet our needs for the type of facility that we may need, because we know that the plan that they have might not be exactly what we're looking at as far as the design for what we need. So there's some negotiation room with some of those plans. We do not know exactly because We're not out hiring construction firms that can come in and say, I'm gonna look at this MEP, I'm gonna look at your architectural design, and I'm gonna go out to all my subcontractors, they're gonna get back with me. This is our final plan, then we go out for RFQs, and we can negotiate that price. So yes, those prices are gonna go up or down, and I'm hoping that they go down. But right now, looking at what we've got, how much are we over with just those four?
Approximately $3 million.
About $3 million.
Oh,
Is that 3 million the
of-
balance of our other bond project? Gonna be
Of the
according to
four,
this?
of the four projects, we're right at the $25.9 million. The four that we are recommending, we're right at 25.9.
I come up with 26.
Peña?
Oh, yeah, I come up with 26. My problem is this. How much what are we gonna do to guarantee that they stay within this budget? Because this is high. This is really high from what Mr. Cortez mentioned in our previous meeting. So because I know it's at the bottom of this, on the paper that we have, it says the next step is to negotiate a fee for said services. How are we gonna make sure that we don't end up spending more money than we have, like we have in the past? And then we look at the facility, and I don't see the dollar that we get our money's worth. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see the extravagance.
Oh, wow.
I don't get wowed, and when I don't get wowed, it means like, what happened to the money? What's going on? What the word I'm looking? What do we have in place? Measures do we have in place that we don't go over budget, and we don't turn around and find out? Well, guess what? We didn't include this, and we didn't include that, and it seems like it always happens, and then they come and they raise the prices sky high,
Mrs.
and we're
Brinton?
stuck.
Yes. I think she's asking us that we stay within $25.9 million budget
Yes.
or lower. Now, how do we assure is very simple. We just don't approve it. The board does not approve it. Because the way I see it, I'm holding them responsible, and Cesar and all these people that work on these facilities, that they need to stay within the budget that is called for. Because at this point, the message is very clear.
But-
We're not going to spend any more money than we have. Whether we like it or not, we're not in a stage at this point to be spending more money out of our
Local
fund
funds.
balance and local monies. That's what we're saying. Mr. Sias.
Yeah, I want to try to keep everybody back on track of where we started with this stuff. The way I remember it was the stimulus funds had to be in a project that was what they call shovel-ready. We have to have contracts already drawn up and ready to go before December,
15.
before December 15th. So in order to do this, it's my understanding, is that you guys went out and got some, sent out some request for proposals out there on some architects to come up with some plans that they already have,
That's correct.
right? And to come up with an estimate of how much they thought it'd be.
That's correct.
So the initial numbers that you had where you thought you were gonna be able to do 5 projects was really a truly big-time guesstimate.
Yes, it was.
And it's my understanding that from looking at the different projects that the architects had and what they've already done and what they would be what they're ready to go with and what their estimates are just estimates. And they're asking for assurances at this time about the building and stuff. There's still another process that has to go through, which is the actual bidding,
That's correct.
right? So we're gonna get some real numbers in from some construction companies.
That's correct.
At that stage, for instance, if the alternative school turns out to be 9.2, then we just don't do that project. We can deny it. We don't have to do it, right?
We can go through the RFQ and actually, negotiate fees, try to get that thing to where it's in with the budget. Or we can say,
Forget it.
reject it, forget it.
Or you can value engineer it with a construction company. There's a lot of
A lot
different.
of different ways, yes, sir.
So there's still some stuff that's in place. And I just want to get everybody back into place here. What we're here to do at this time is just approve the RFPs that came in so that you can start negotiating with the architects even on fee amounts, right?
In the morning, we hope.
So, I mean, you haven't even done that yet.
No.
Mr. Aguilar.
And the reason that you do that is because state law requires in order, before you can even start negotiating a fee amount with these architects, you have to have approved them as
The architect.
the architect that was chosen on the RFP.
That's correct.
So I think we're really jumping ahead of ourselves at this time, what we're here for today. Today, we're here for just approving these architects on these projects.
We just want them to know what we want.
First of all, what are the guesstimate fees of the architects? 2%, 3%, 4%, 6%?
No, ma'am.
Because it varies.
Yes, ma'am. Usually when you have plans, they can range from anywhere between 4%, sometimes a little bit less, all the way up to 4.5%. I do not know. I'm not going to even guess with that because we're here to work with the architects, or at least assign them or approve them tonight, and that way we can go back and we can start negotiating prices with them.
So it's basically, it's up to them to say, if they want to charge me a 5%, it's okay. We're going to pay the 5%.
No, ma'am, that's not what we're saying. We're here to negotiate.
Okay, because I don't want to pay more than a certain percentage. I mean, if you look at our expenses
Don't say
on-
the amount now,
on the-
because we're still negotiating that.
I know.
So,
That's
Yeah,
what
and
I'm saying.
besides,
We
No, but
can't
I'm
do
saying,
that.
for instance, if they're gonna charge me a 5%, I don't think it's gonna be fair.
Mm.
You know, because we paid outrageously a numerous amount of money for architect work, and I know that they gotta get paid. However, when I was looking at all those fees that are on our system, on our webpage, because there's a fee there of what we've paid for every project, I've been asked why we're paying so much. Now, if some of these plans are already in existence, that some of these architects already have, well, shouldn't that be a lot less expensive than having to withdraw our whole new plan of how we want the design of the campus?
and I think this is what Mrs. Springton and Mr. Sy is talking about. This is why we're trying to award these items tonight, because administration with negotiates tends to reason if there's existing plans, naturally they're not going to charge you your regular fee. I mean, thanks to reason. I mean, we don't have to go through all night doing this.
Mr.
My
Aguilar,
concern is that, Mr. Sias, ma'am. Sias, is we understand what we're here for, but just in case, we want to assure that the administration understands that when they sit down and start negotiating, that they do the best to save our money, because we're not here to give out more than $25.9 million. You can say, that's the whole bottom line. That's what was the concern of it, that we have these questions. Ms. Peña had a.
that was my point
All right.
exactly. It's just to tell them that if it doesn't come through here and it comes in, it's gonna get turned down. And you're gonna go through all that work needlessly if you don't try hard enough to
I'm
change
ready
the
for
constraints.
So
question.
PACE, my last question, so PACE is out of it completely? We're not
For
gonna
right
do
now,
anything.
yes, ma'am.
Can I address that issue? With regards to PACE, is there gonna be some money left over on the, was it $125 or $135 million bond left over that's possible that we can still do the PACE project?
You know, they've been looking at trying to build something at Hannah for several years. And since I've been sitting in the chair for the last 20 months, I kept saying that we will find a way to get things done. And we're at a point now to where we can actually get something done for that campus, who is the only campus who doesn't have that type of building.
When you say that, you mean Hannah?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we'll probably have somewhere close to $3.8 to $4 million left over in the other project. I will say that I did tell this board back in May, somewhere around May, that we would be looking, that once we close out those projects, that we would be looking first of all to start closing out our federal guidelines with ADA. Back about 2 years ago, we were looking at about 1.3 million, 1.4 million that was going to cost to finish out some ADA requirements. I think I was telling you that, Ms. Pena, and I told you I would come back to you in December. Hopefully, we would have those projects finished, and I would have a number for you on how much money was used. And then I also told the board that we would be looking at some campuses in our renovation plans for HVAC upgrades and some re-roofing repairs. And so, and that was for our older campuses. Now then, if we want to go back and change the scope of some of those things, I would say that maybe yes on everything except for maybe the ADA upgrades. That's something that is a federal requirement and it's a must. And I do not know what that's going to cost us, because 2 or 3 years ago it was at 1.2, 1.3 million. Now I would have to guesstimate that there's going to be an increase in that cost too.
So, Mr. Sprinton, Was that a no to the question? Was that a no to the question?
No, ma'am, that was said I will find a way. I said I
Okay.
will look to find a way or make it a priority project.
You're making it, okay.
Since you gave us a historical background on the Hannah Auditorium, it's not to say that it's unfair for the administration, previous administration that they neglected Hannah, they did not.
Didn't.
It's just a fact that Hannah was given a choice between an auditorium, in between that and also classrooms, and they chose the classroom. We're not talking about the same principal, it also was not there. It's a previous principal. So when Porter and Pace performance arts buildings were built, Hannah could have theirs, Mrs. Springton, but they chose classroom. So it's only fair to let you know that the previous administration did not neglect Hannah.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Mr. Aguilar, just one more question.
Yes,
Mr. Springston, on that, Hannah, you know, couldn't it have been at 6.5, Bex at 5.2, you know, back at 7.5? That could have given us easily pace, some room to work with them there for what their needs are. I just don't, it's hard for me to digest that one of them is 8.5, the other one's 6.2. Like, there was really no room for them, period. Like, we just gave it all up and just, there's no money. I mean, why can't it be that, I mean, the numbers are high, 8.5 for one project, why couldn't it have been at 7.5? I mean, it's just twigging with the numbers, why not? It's just like, no, there's no money, that's it, because this one's gonna be 8.5 instead of, why not? I find it very hard to believe that that cannot be done.
We've looked at it and we've rolled over on it on several occasions. We looked at the Porter, because of the different architects that we had worked with. Then we went into consideration, utilities and infrastructure cost, about 1.35% best estimate. We looked at our HVAC testing and balancing, about 0.3%, 30%, geotechnical materials testing, 1.25%. We looked at surveys, replatting, appraisals, environmental studies, and we're not even talking about legal fees, closing costs, and those other probabilities that are in there that are all part of these fees per project. And when you add all of those things up, some of those projects were higher than what we got in our ready in the plan, in the canned plans type of designs. When we got those figures and they turned out to be more than the 25.9 million, then we have to go back somewhere and start looking at where we are going to stay within that budget. That's what we did.
Mr. Aguilar, just one more thing. Can we please, did I say please? Get details. I mean, as detailed as you can get with the cost and the fees before it comes to the board for approval. Can we get it when we get our Friday letter? I mean, 3 days is really short, but it
Costs and
helps.
fees for,
When these projects come out to get approved,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
get awarded, I want a specific detail on everything. Can make sure we get it before we show up to the meeting.
yes, ma'am, because I
Please.
couldn't give you those details because
No, when it happens, when it comes up for approval.
Right.
I'd like to call a question.
All this, have in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Be moved to
Second.
approve. Have a second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Before I close, I know we were speeding up some of these things through the process because everything had to be by December. But I want to give, like Ms. Peña says, give credit when credit is due. It is her famous saying. But I want to give Mr. Cortez credit for allowing the administration to make him aware about this $26 million that we qualified, being that he was a member of the legislative chairperson of this board, that he brought it to the administration that there was some money for us that we had left on the table, and make sure that we didn't miss the deadline. So thank you. Now we can put this $26 million to use.
Mr. President, who seconded the motion for the question? Peña?
Yes, Deb, we had one, sir. Thank you, sir. Pat?
I don't have nothing, Mr. Aguilar. It's done, goes to announcements.
Okay. They don't have anything closed meeting? Announcements?
just a couple of announcements I'll go ahead and do is that we're working on our what's it called, Drew, that we're doing on the 11th? Our Walk to the Future is coming up on Saturday, the 11th, and we're going door to door to search for some of our students who have not reported to school yet. September the 11th, and we'll start over at CAB. We want to try to recapture as many kids as we possibly can and get them back enrolled and get them in school. Our dropout rate keeps dropping, and our completion rate keeps going up, and we want to make sure that this is continuing, and we want to put forth these efforts as soon as possible. We have a dedication coming up for Manzano Middle School on the 18th, and we have a dedication for Veterans Memorial on October the 2nd. Just different things that are coming up all of a sudden. We have a lot of activities that are taking place. And then, of course, our regular scheduled board meeting is going to be held this Tuesday, September 7th at 5:30 p.m. We'll see you there.
Mr. Springs, on going back to what you were saying on this, going door to door, do you have any kind of research that now that what happened to last year's students that we recruited, did they stay in school? How are they doing? Has the administration looked into this and see how successful we were in the first drive?
Yes, sir. I don't have the numbers with me exactly because I had the assessment department go back and take a look. But I will tell you just offhand, I don't have that number. But I will tell you offhand, just going through graduations, that every principal at every graduation introduced me to several students that were Back to the Future candidates that actually stayed in school and actually graduated. And I shook some of their hands, and they told me it was one of the best things they did. I think some of them even that you had mentored had mentored one of them or two of them.
1 out of 5.
And the one I had
Not
kept
bad.
through. So we're.
I got 4 to graduate.
That's what I'm saying, it's not bad.
It was actually it was very tremendous to save as many as we did, but I will have a number for you by the end of the week.
Because not all of them were seniors, I'm pretty sure others were sophomores.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Also want to thank, who had the largest number of graduates? Rivera. To me, it's a very positive thing because to me, it shows me that the school did not give up on those students, and they really worked hard with those students to
Summer
make sure
grads?
they graduate.
The summer grads?
Yes.
Yeah,
mhm.
they had a whole bunch of them.
If I may mention, Mr. Aguilar, I was listening to some of the war stories, if I may call them that, for lack of a better word, when they went out to actually get these kids to come back, and they stayed on them and persisted and never let go. And they would have been, if it didn't work for one teacher, they'd send out another teacher, if it didn't work, until they found someone to connect. My hat's off to Rivera. Because of that work, they were able to bring all those students back in. And I want to commend them because that shows the love and care they have for those students.
Have a motion to
Move
adjourn?
to adjourn.
Second.
Second, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.